see momentum, and you see good herd hierarchy in 1 hour. Brian Kelly, Notre Dame coach, on today. Max Crosby of the Raiders. Joy Taylor's joining me. Joy, how are you?
I'm doing great.
We have, I see some of the weather banging around the East Coast today. Cross our fingers. We've been a little bit lucky out here right now
Yeah,
to see what's going on with some of these NFL games. So the big story yesterday that I saw was a James Harden, Houston Rockets, great scorer. He doesn't want to play for the Rockets anymore, and he wants to go play with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. And he said, listen, I don't care if you can pay me $50 million the max. I don't want to play. He'd be the first $50 million a year guy in a state with no state tax. He's like, I'm not interested. I want to win games. So the NBA has always been the league. I kind of laugh. Very rarely will you find a baseball player that will play for the absolute less. He wants the max money. Basketball players all the time are like, I want to win games. But let's start with this. How great is James Harden? I mean, he's obviously a number one. Or is he? To me, there's 4 players in the NBA. That is it. And almost every industry works like this. 4 guys, to me, that you can hand the franchise to, and they have all the components of a number one. They can score. They at least give you an effort defensively. They can lead spots. They can at times elevate others, and you can't marginalize them. They don't have a hole in their game you can always marginalize. There's 4. Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kawhi Leonard. Steph tries on defense. He's not very good. But that's why they have Klay Thompson, who's great. What about Giannis? You can marginalize Giannis. Go ahead, bro. Shoot. He plays great with a lead, not from behind. For years, you all thought Westbrook was a 1. You can marginalize him easy. Have you ever seen teams defend Westbrook? They're begging him to shoot three-pointers. Embiid, I like him, but injuries and conditioning issues. Luka, really talented, but so far he's just a really talented young kid. He needs experience. Kyrie, he's hurt all the time. James Harden, incredibly ball-centric, barely gives an effort on the defensive end. I mean, I look up and down on all these guys that you've been trying to convince me are ones. Being a 1 is not just about scoring. It never has been. When I was a kid, George Gervin as a kid scored. He was never a 1. There's been a lot of guys in this league that scored. Daryl Morey in Houston were convinced this guy can be the centerpiece. We'll just find guys that can play with him. And they found out they struggled to get past the first round. He's not a 1. He's the world's potentially best 2. He's not as good as Durant. He's not as dependable in a big spot. He doesn't defend like Durant. And frankly, I don't think he has the leadership skills of Durant. Durant's a 1. LeBron's a 1. Steph's a 1. And Steph is smart enough and had the self-awareness enough. When he played with another 1, he backed off and let Durant be the man late in games. Just because you score a lot doesn't mean you're a 1. It never has. I've been watching this league for 40 years. There's been dozens of guys who are just great scorers. But you get nothing else with it. You don't get the leadership. They won't play on the defensive end. They don't really elevate anybody beyond themselves. You can marginalize them. It's a prime example. For years and years, you kept telling me AD was a 1. No, he's the world's best 2. He's not a leader. He can score and defend, but he doesn't really want to lead. That's not his game. When he was with a true 1, LeBron, he just moved over, became the world's best 2. There's nothing wrong with that. There's never been a 2 as good as Anthony Davis. But he was a 1 for years in New Orleans. They won 1 playoff series. You keep telling me Giannis is a 1. You can marginalize him. He's a great defender and a great kid and can score. Try trailing by 10 late, 4 minutes left. You want him to have the ball? And so, James Harden, give him credit. He's not just doing it as a money grab, and he's starting to realize he wants to drive to the arena every night. Let him be the scorer, not the man. Just drive to the arena. You're going to get 31 points. There's nothing wrong with that. He's great at it. But Kevin Durant is going to be the man. And in the huddle, last shot of the game, it's going to be Kevin Durant. So, when I look at Harden, everybody, think about this. The last time an NBA team won a title without my 4, Durant, Steph, LeBron, and Kawhi. The last time an NBA team won a title without one of those 4 was 2011. And if you are one of those 4, like Steph and you play with another one, then you have to have the self-awareness to go, okay, I'm Steph, I'm good, I'm not Kevin Durant, and step back. This was always the genius of D. Wade. People are like, D. Wade's a 1. He is unless he's playing with Shaq or LeBron. Then he becomes a 2. You go into the huddle late in the game, and D. Wade is not getting that shot. LeBron is. And Steph goes into that huddle, and mostly you're not getting that shot. KD is. So, Houston, they, made the mistake of confusing score with true 1. Big difference. I've seen it for 40 years. Huge difference. All right, so I watched the Vikings. I actually bet Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football. I took my life into my own hands, and I won. And if you watched that game last night, it was like watching last Thursday, where a quarterback, Phillip Rivers, and a really good roster, the Colts, beat the Titans. And the next day, you're all like, Colin, what do you make of the Colts? I make of the Colts what I make of the Vikings, 5 days later. Really good roster. Colts defense is great. Vikings offensive skill players, they're loaded. And Phillip Rivers and Kirk Cousins, they can win road games, they did. They can win tough road games, Titans, Bears, they did. They can win tough road divisional rival games, they both did. But can we have an adult conversation? Phillip Rivers and Kirk Cousins can have big nights, but between Mike Zimmer's play calling, which is rigid at minimum, and Kirk Cousins' inability to really move and be dynamic, we have to have an adult conversation. If the Colts don't roll the dice at quarterback, and if the Vikings don't eventually move off Kirk Cousins, they're just going to be a tease, and nobody likes a tease. The Colts are really ready to win a championship, but they got to get more dynamic at quarterback. And the Vikings, if they can shore up their defense a little in the next draft, and Rick Spielman's an excellent general manager, are ready to win one too. They've been ready for years to win one. They were ready the previous 3 years to win one. And it doesn't mean Phillip Rivers won't get Hall of Fame votes. And it doesn't mean Kirk Cousins can't play. Kirk Cousins last night was 25 of 36, 100 quarterback rating, threw for 286 yards, very good on third down, and 35 minutes time of possession. Same numbers that Phillip Rivers had on Thursday. But the difference between Phillip Rivers and Kirk Cousins, you don't get that 3 out of 4 games or 4 out of 5, and you can with the Patrick Mahomes. So this morning, I believe that both the Vikings and the Colts, it's quarterback quicksand. The Vikings gave an extension to Kirk Cousins because they had to get some cap space freed up. And so they didn't see a viable alternative on the market, so they just extended Kirk Cousins. And the Colts, similarly with Jacoby Brissett, they didn't want to spend massive money for the free agent quarterback, so, they brought in Phillip Rivers for a 1-year deal. They didn't see another viable alternative on the market. Both organizations have great GMs. Both organizations have one side of the ball that's loaded, the Vikings offense and the Colts defense. But if you want to become the Kansas City Chiefs, this is what the Kansas City Chiefs were for years. Really good and really well run and a really good roster and good enough to win a division and good enough to get to the playoffs. Vikings and Colts are. But you want to be a Super Bowl champ? Because the Colts and the Vikings are too good to get a top 10 pick. The GMs are too good. The coaches are very good. The rosters and points are great. But, I watched that game it was like watching the Colts. I'm like, happy for you, won some money, but this is quarterback quicksand. And I think you have to roll the dice and go big or go home in this league. Aggressive wins. I've been saying that for years in sports. And I think the Colts and the Vikings will, at the end of this season, I still contend the Vikings will make the playoffs. They'll be like the 7th seed. They're going to make the playoffs, and so are the Colts, and they're going to get beat by a better quarterback. Not by a better coach or a better roster. Not by a better offensive line. Not by a better receiving core. They'll get beat by a better quarterback. It's quicksand. Roll the dice for both. All right, coming up next. So let's just talk about this. Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving together. That's a good movie poster. But will it be a good movie? I'll give you my thoughts on that coming up. As we move into the holidays, celebrating can be different. We had a big Thanksgiving planned, and then we've had to pare it back dramatically. Can't have 20 people. Can you have 8 for 2.5 hours, not 5? But you still want to make people know you care about them and you're thinking about them. And you're going to have some people over for Thanksgiving. How do you do it? 1-800-Flowers.com. Thanksgivings, fall birthdays, table arrangements, bouquets, it's all here. Put Thanksgiving wishes front and